Hey guys, it's me, Azul, back on Cardfight Vanguard deck profile. So you guys enjoyed, don't like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we're covering another deck for DC set 10, Granfia. Granfia got a really random evolution this set where they didn't hint at Granfia, it's just that, oh, the week before, yeah, Granfia gets a new form type of deal. And this doesn't save the deck, and it kind of, in my opinion, shot in the kneecap and made it more unnecessary, but I mean, whatever, it is what it is. So let's get started, see what we got. Also, this is what I call the cursed deck profile, because this is like my 5th time trying to record this over the course of 2 weeks, because every time I try to record it, something goes wrong. So yeah, let's get this started. As I say that, motorcycle goes on in the background. So yeah, proof the curse is still on. Anyways, energy generator, this is our ride deck crest. You remember ride deck in your ride deck, auto ride deck. When you ride, put this card to your crest zone. If you want second energy charge 3, then continues with 10 energy, I'll begin ride phase energy charge 3, and act once per turn energy plus 7 draw card. Arm pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every turn. If you win second, get an extra 3 on top of that, and once you have 7 or more, you can blast 7 of it to draw a card. Arm pretty solid, this deck doesn't really have any real energy blasters, so most of the time the energy will go to using the draw skill, so not a bad card to have as our ride deck crest. Moving on to our starter, we have Kind Lordling Granfia. Grades will boost 5k shield, 6k base, auto road pump, if it's like a draw card, standard starter, and a free draw if you go second. His castle behind him, or like his area, gives like a nice like fantasy vibe, and I love his flowers, honestly. Like, this is one of my favorite starters of all time. Moving on to our plant tokens, we have 10 plant tokens. They're just standard grade 0 boost with no shield and 5k power. You know, they're token units, you can't put them in the main deck, but you do need a lot of them because the deck kind of transforms them into plant gauges and has different ways of spamming out plant tokens. Speaking of which, our plant gauge creator is Nobella's Rose token. Grade 0 boost, no shield, 5k power. This unit represents a Nobella's Rose token and cannot be put into the main deck. Contains rear guard. This unit cannot be moved to other circles. And if you have a Vanguard of Granfia in the card name, regardless of grade, all the following are active. When your plant token be placed on rear guard circle, put it as a plant gauge of this unit instead. This effect is mandatory, which is unfortunate because it makes Granfia harder to board spam because it basically takes everything that would create a plant token and shoves it in back row center, but whatever. This unit gets 5,000 power for each of its gauges, and then when you retire a rear guard for a cost, if that cost may be paid by retiring a plant token rear guard, you may pay it by discarding a plant gauge as well. So any rear guard retiring will do, or just a plant token specifically, it would still cost us like just discarding a plant gauge. All around pretty solid. It allows you to have alternate costs for rear guard, murdering with the deck that already struggles to kill off its own rear guard since it doesn't have any rear guards because all of them go to Novel's Rose token as gauges, but at least it makes a big beast out of it. So one of, you know, the only downside is it's killable by rear guard murdering effect. So if you're playing against something like Eugene, yeah, your deck's going to be in a huge bit of trouble. Moving on, we have the evolved form of our Novel's Rose token thanks to the new Granfia. Novel's Rose Rosaria token, so grade 0 boost 0 shield, 5k power, represents the Noblesse Rose Rosaria token, cannot be put into the main deck. Contains rear guard, it cannot be moved to other circles. Any of your Vanguard has Granfia in the card name, it's also treated as the Noblesse Rose, and it gets all the following. The standard, when a plant token be placed on rear guard circle, it's automatically shoved under his gauges. It gets 5,000 power for each gauge. When you retire rear guard for the cost, if you can retire by retiring a plant token, the gauge can also be paid for that. And then auto rear guard once per turn, when your Vanguard is being attacked, discard any number of plant gauges from it. For each gauge discarded, it gets 5,000 power for the battle. Why is that a once per turn? Even Roroa's self rear guard kill is not a once per turn. Why is that skill a once per turn per gauge? It's not like the deck can make gauges out the wazoo consistently. I mean, yes it can, but like, it's not like that would break the deck. If anything, that would make the deck defensive. At least it gives it a focus, because right now it's kind of got make the token, make gauges. It doesn't really excel in defense. It definitely doesn't excel in offense. I don't know why they couldn't make it excel in defense, but especially because people keep asking for defensive decks, but whatever. But she refuses to do that. More importantly, it doesn't have the ability to prevent itself from being killed by rear guards. The only card that has that ability is thankfully a promo that came out a week after the first fail take, because if it wasn't for that fail take, I wouldn't have included that card in the deck because it didn't have an English image at the time. So one of Nobella's Rose Rosaria, it's the upgraded form of the OG Rose token. I mean, you only run it because it basically has an extra skill and because the new Granfia is just good enough, quote unquote, to run, but take that as you will. On to our triggers. We have Over Trigger and Source Dragon Deity of Blessings Bust Favor. Grade 0 boost 50k shield, 5k power. Over Trigger, remove Over Trigger in your deck. Revealed as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one of you, give +1 million for the turn. And if you revealed it during your draft check, activate the addition effect, would you get to draw a card, choose one of you, give it +1 critical for the turn. Your front row gets 10,000 power, and if your damage the same number of cards your opponents are more, choose a card from damage on to heal it. On pretty solid because with your draft check, someone gets a million, you get a draw, but if you drove check this, you get an extra draw, so you get a total of 2 draws. Your Vanguard gets a critical, whoever you gave the million to. Your front row gets 10k, so your opponent 1 to pass the Vanguard. Don't even bother putting the million on the Vanguard, just put the front row 10k on it, and then give it the critical, then give the million to someone else, and you possibly even get a heal of it as well. R and 11 plus before because it doesn't guarantee you the one when you drive check it, unlike the other over triggers, but it definitely makes it a hell of a lot harder for your opponent to win because it gives you so much advantage if you sack it. So 1 plus before. Moving on, we have our normal triggers, 7 of them being criticals, 3 of them being Melodio Palmaria, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power, standard critical, nice battle, you can make it with any cream monster to make it Palmaria because when Granfia first came out, I sold the deck from Leonor, and this was the crit in Leonor. Then we have 4 Aspiring Maiden Alana, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 4k power, auto rear guard by the boosted shove to soul, choosing to give 2k for the turn. So cool, it gives you soul. This deck can run into a soul problem since Granfia himself does cost soul, so being able to mitigate that, especially if you run into your other soul blasters, is pretty useful as well. The deck does have a lot of soul charges, so if you want to make this of another crit, you can. I choose to make it a Lana just in case that situation does come up. And we have 4 copies of Serene Maiden Lena. Grades will boost 5k shield, 4k base, continues guard circle. Every opponent's vanguard to grade 3 grade. She has 5,000 shield. So you know, she's a 10k shield, she has draw shield, so she helps increase the hand. Try to draw more of your important pieces since all of your rear guards turn into gauges. If you can't tell, that's why I don't like this deck a lot, but whatever. Cool. 4 for guard power, just hand cards. And then 4 flowery tone, grades will boost 15k shield, 5k base. And there's any here you want. I chose to make a flowery tone because again, like Melodia, I stole it from Leonore. Moving on to our grade 1s. 4 copies of the incredible grade 1 that if it kind of hard saves the deck. 4 of Burrow Mushroom, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 6k base. Act rear guard, yeet it to soul, call up to 2 plant tokens to rear guard. And if your vanguards are grade 3 grade Granfia, choose one of your rear guards, you have 5,000 power of the turn. The card that everyone gets on my ass about for not running in a different Stoicheia deck because I don't like running the full abilities of cards and people gives me shit about it anyways. But pretty much being able to send stuff to soul is great. Again, in a deck that kind of has consistent soul blasters, so being able to get your soul back is good. But also being able to call 2 plant tokens in the early game before either side gets to grade 3 is great, because that means you can aggro down your opponent's grade 1 vanguard with just 1 rear guard because it makes a column of them essentially. And if you do get to grade 3, well, it gives someone 5k, and even if those tokens go under your rose token as a gauge, well, I mean, someone still gets 5k regardless. So 4 Burrow Mushrooms. And then we have 4 Farmer Pumpkin or Farmin Pumpkin. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, act rear guard once per turn if your vanguards are Granfia in the card name, regardless of what grade it is. Soul boss 1, call plant token rear guard if your vanguards are grade 3 or greater, however you call 2 instead of 1. Again, pretty solid because this deck can rush before you even get to grade 3, because as all of your abilities pretty much is required to have Granfia, or in the Burrow Mushrooms case, it doesn't require any specific unit, which means you can basically make a board of plant tokens, spam down your opponent. Then when you get to Granfia, you can then turn all of those plant tokens into gauges and then open up your board. How good of an idea is that outside of theory? Not great. I mean, yeah, you're making a board and it's just really consistent all around. Does it do anything? No, because you're just making a board of a bunch of 5k, so it doesn't really get you very far. But I mean, still very solid grade when I have in the deck. Gets you extra rear guards for only 1 soul, which again is mitigated by Burrow Mushrooms over here, so not a bad 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Rosemary and Fairy. Very much your only way to get numbers outside of the Nobella's Rose token. Red on boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto and placed on rear guard circle, retire another rear guard, or retire one of your gauges. Call up to 2 plant tokens to rear guard circle, which basically just replaces the gauges. But again, doesn't require either player to be at a specific grade. So basically the deck has a lot of ways to guarantee that you could grade 1 rush your opponent, which is good. Like, I like that, and it doesn't require a lot from you. And so the issue is it doesn't keep that up consistently, and then it doesn't have good numbers. So not like you're really doing much to your opponent, especially if they pull a defensive trigger, then suddenly your best play got shut down. Then auto rear guard when it attacks anything. Your vanguard is either Granfia or Leonore, and your opponent's at grade 3 or greater. Choose one of your other back or rear guards and increase this unit's power by that unit's power until the end of the battle. All in pretty solid because pretty much your obvious target is your Nobella's Rose token over here, or Rosaria Rosera, and pretty much that guarantees that whatever how much gauge it is times 5,000, automatically Rosarium is going to get it, so pretty much swings from really good numbers, which could also end up getting even more numbers from either the 2 Granfia skill, being able to push out your opponent for 68k grade 1. Now that's a really good thing for targeting. Unfortunately, it doesn't have crit pressure, but A, it's still a very solid grade 1.5 for getting more gauge / rear guard in the early game, and it's getting really big numbers overall, so 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of the promo who wasn't in here originally, but after the first few fail takes, I put it in because for those that don't know, I don't like to run promos if we do not have confirmed dates about their English release, but during the time span of the first failed take and the second failed take, this card got released, or at least we have its idea of when it's going to be released in English, and it got an English art too, therefore I can run this. Shawa Kabore, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, act rear guard or drop zone if your Nobella's Rose token is on your rear guard circle, soul boss 1, choose one of your Nobella's Rose tokens and perform on the following. Either put this card face up as a gauge for that unit, or if your card with the same card name as this card was not put at the bottom of your deck this turn, put the top 3 cards of your deck face up as that unit's plant gauges and put this card on the bottom. So from either drop zone or rear guard, you get one of those 2 abilities. If you have one on rear guard and one on drop zone, you can still use both, you know, put one as bot deck to get gauges and then put the other one just straight up as a gauge. And then continuous gauge zone, the Nobella's Rose token that this unit has as a plant gauge cannot be affected by anything of your opponent's cards. That is so good because it F's over all of your opponent's skills. It cannot be bound, it cannot be moved, it cannot be retired, but it can be called over by things like Chaos Breaker. Thankfully, that doesn't exist in D, so we don't have to worry about that part. This is an amazing card, and every time you get this into your hand, you automatically put it down as a plant gauge. And then auto, when this card is a plant gauge, discard it, bind it. This effect is mandatory as long as you live. on this green earth, this card stays in that gauge. As long as you have a choice. The moment you discard this is the moment you go for game, because if you do not kill them in that next turn, you die. So 4 of Shawa Shawa, very good grade 1. It gives your gauge the protection factor that it should inherently have but doesn't already, and it gives you more gauges to get them more numbers. Defend this thing like your life depends on it, because it does. Then we have 4 PGs in Custodial Dragon, grade 1 boost, 0 Sod, 6k base, continuous sentinel for 4 sentinels in deck, auto put on guard circle, choose one of your units, it cannot be hit in the battle, if you 2 more cards in it, choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically, that means it doesn't have more cards in your hand placed on guard circle. You don't have to discard, it's great, because that means you can be super aggressive in the early game. Okay, spam the hell out of anything that makes plant tokens, you'll be good to go. When your opponent does eventually counterattack you in the late game, because again, you're not committing that many hand cards in the early game. When your opponent does eventually counterattack you in the late game, and you got low hand cards, because you have very low defense power in general, because for some reason this is a once per turn, you then throw down your PG, give your opponent middle finger, and you're good to go. Solid PG to have as a 4 of. You can make this Planet Prevent Dragon or Honeycomb Thyris. I choose to make it Custodial Dragon because it came out close to the time of Granfia's release. On to our last grade 1 of the deck. One of them in the back, none of the main deck of Future, Caesarian, Granfia. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Auto Ropon by Genius Wise Wolf Granfia. Call to 1 plant token to your back or rear guard center. Plant tokens again are grade 0s with 5k power boost and 1 critical. Get your rear guard by simply being rode upon. And again, you pretty much have ways to consistently make rear guards already. Burrow Mushrooms makes you 2. Farm Pumpkin makes you 1. So pretty much on your first grade 1 turn, you're going to have 4 rear guards. Your grade 2 turn, you automatically get 1 for free. Now back everyone have the deck as a 1 of Brotherhood deck. As for our grade 2s, 3 copies of a card I want to tech out for our really good, promo who does what the deck should do inherently. But the reason why I didn't tech it out is because, like I mentioned a little bit with Rosarian Fairy, this deck needs all the pressure it can get, and the fact that the thing inherently has crit pressure makes it good enough to keep. 3 of Fairy of Prospecting Rolua, grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base. I really love this background with the whole rose blooming. Anyways, auto rear guard when it attacks. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 greater than Granfia, retire a plant token, it gets 10,000 power for the battle. Your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 greater than Counterboss 1, get a critical for the battle. Unfortunately, you have to kill something to then activate the Counterboss 1 skill, at least to my understanding. But again, being able to be a 20k swing with extra critical pressure is good with a non-once per turn, and considering the only card in the deck that costs CB is Rolua himself, yeah, all your CB is gonna go to this mofo, and you're gonna pressure the hell out of your opponent. Very solid grade 2 for overall aggression with both power and critical, and if it does restand off of either Granfia's effects, it's probably getting plus 25, so 35k swing with double critical without boosters or triggers. Not a bad grade 2 to have in the deck as a 3 of. You want to up it to 4, go ahead and tech down this card. Ran or Rangerine at 4, or again 3, depending if you want to tech up Rolua. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto placed on rearguard circle. You may call 1 plant token to rearguard circle, so free, non-mandatory call if your board already has a lot of presence or it's just a free gauge. And then auto from a rearguard circle beginning of your battle phase if your Vanguard is a Granfia, regardless of which Granfia it is. So if you call this while you're on grade 1 somehow, or your Vanguard is the grade 2, you get a plant token to rearguard. Again, this deck has ways to just make rearguards out the wazoo before you get to grade 3, and once you get to grade 3, you just have endless gauge spamming, which doesn't help you if you don't get this into there, but whatever. Pretty solid grade 2 to have. Get you rearguards, get you gauges really quickly, and does it all for free. Solid 4, but if you want to take it down to the 3 of to have 4 copies of Rolua, I get that. As for our last grade 2 in the deck, 1 of in the right, none in the main deck of Genius Wise Wolf Granfia. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto Vanguard. If your rearguard has a plant token on it, if your soul has Future Caesarian Granfia, when you ride to a grade 3 Granfia from the ride deck, you can ride without discarding a card from your hand. So pretty much as long as you have the grade 1 in soul and you have any plant token on rearguard, so as long as your opponent didn't board nuke you, you get a free ride. 1 of Granfia in the ride deck. As for our grade 3s, okay, this card I don't have a problem with. I have a problem with this one, but this one I don't have a problem with. Levian Lord Granfia. Grade 3 turns out persona 13k base, 3 of the main deck, 1 of the ride deck. Act Vanguard once per turn. Cell Blast 1, turn all of your plant tokens on your rear guards into plant gauges, and then call a Nobelis Rose token to back row center, rear guard, and put all of your plant gauges on that unit. Pretty much, say for example, your full board is plant tokens. All those tokens turn into gauges, so you get 5 gauge in total, and then you get the token on the back or rear guard circles. Not bad. Basically gives your rear guard however many rear guards you had times 5,000 in terms of power. And then it does it all for a soul boss, which is solid. And then his other ability doesn't cost CB, energy, nothing. Auto Vanguard, at the end of the battle that attacked anything, put 1 of more of your Nobelis Rose tokens or your plant gauges into a total of 5 cards into the drop zone. Choose 1 of your rear guards, and it gets 5,000 power to end of turn for each card put into the drop zone for this cost. If you put 3 or more cards, stay in the unit. So you don't have to put 3 cards, you can put 2, and it would still be able to give a unit power, 5k or 10k, depending on how much you put a drop zone. But if you put 5, or say for example, you put 4 gauges and 1 Nobelia, because you can't do that, you can stand a rear guard and give it plus 25. Pretty solid. It does drop your Nobelis Rose token by power, but it does end up increasing your other rear guard's power, and it does allow it to stand, which is good. My only gripe with this card itself, and is mainly more with the Rose token, is because the deck deck doesn't have any ways to gain power to rearguard. Like, if you're paying attention, the only other card in the deck that actually gains power is Rosarium Fairy over here, and to some extent Mushrooms, but let's be honest, that 5k does not make a difference. But is the fact that no one else gains power, and again, Nobelius takes away from other rearguards, so you don't have consistent boosters. But it's nice that Granfia converts power from Nobelius Rose token to another rearguard. This Granfia I love. It's cost efficient, it only has 2 separate costs on it, and it doesn't really cost anything else outside of a Soul Blast, which again, you just get by riding, and then not to mention the fact that we have an inherent soul charge that can form Burrow Mushrooms, and it takes away from the gauges, but it transfers that power to another rearguard. So not a bad grade 3 in the deck. 3 of in the main deck, 1 in the red deck. Honestly, this is a very good card. The only way this card could have been better at the time it came out was maybe give it a, for every 3 gauges, your front row gets 10k. That wouldn't necessarily break the deck, it just makes it more of a power threshold, or 5k if they really want to keep it balanced, but honestly, that would have been a great way to keep it up. But either way, this isn't a bad grade 3, that just would have made it better. This card, considering that this card came out, when did this card come out? OG Granfia came out and DZ set 9. This card comes out 13 sets later. Radiant Lord Granfia Juliment comes out. Grade 3, Twin Drive, Persona Ride, 13k base. Auto in place by riding from Radiant Lord Granfia after Persona Ride until end of turn, and this unit gets all of the original abilities of that unit. All your plant tokens and Nobelius Rose tokens on your rearguard become plant gauges, and you call Nobelius Rosaria token to your back or rearguard center, and it puts all of your gauges face up on that unit. The issue with that is that if you don't already have a Nobelius Rose token, then yes, it copies this Granfia, but you're only going to be able to call the OG Rose token. So again, if you don't get Shawa into the gauge and your opponent mercs off your token, you're automatically not pulling off your new Rosaria, which is good defensively, but I digress from that point. It's not bad that it activates an additional Persona Ride. If it had another skill that wasn't this, it would be better. Auto Vanguard. At the end of your turn, choose a Levating Lord Granfia from your soul, ride as rest. If you row, choose one of your Nobelius Rose tokens, put this card face up as a plant gauge for that unit. That's it. So let me get this straight. The only way to protect your Rose token from any form of retiring, from anything in general, where that card is your main playmaker of the deck, is through a promo who came out like 2 sets before this thing in Japan and is coming out either right before or right after this thing in English. Why? Especially because this thing has the audacity to go to gauge. It would be good if it still maintained like Shawa Shawa and made the thing protected. It doesn't. It just gets you a gauge. More importantly, the only thing this thing does is Persona Ride and gets you an extra step and make this thing have a defensive skill, which again doesn't do jack if it gets murdered beforehand. And even more importantly, that defensive skill is once per turn for some reason because they couldn't make this deck a little bit more defensive. Why? I genuinely do not get Juliment. This does not save the deck. It could have given crit pressure to things. It could have given more numbers to everyone. The skill I just said, the 10k one. They could have done that to balance it out. Why is this card so... Persona Ride activation is fine. Copying this ability, just it will A, to have the restand, but also just in case your opponent does nuke you, is fine. But why have this effect? Or even if they did have this effect, make it defensive, or attach a power gaining effect to it. Why just go to gauge at the end of the turn? Why? I hate this card so much. I hate it with a burning passion. 4 of, because Bushy gave Granfia support, and as much as I hate this deck, it deserves some recognition. I could say they tried. They didn't. They definitely didn't with this. Considering Sagra Skaya exists, they definitely didn't try. But I can at least pretend that they did. That's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. When Granfia first came out, I hated it for the reasons I kept bringing up during the video. It doesn't make rear guards because all of them turn into gauges, and even when they do make rear guards, they only make plant tokens. And unlike Roroa, where it has a payoff in some way with murking them off with its own Momoke token and then recreating them, it doesn't do that here. But you know, at least OG Granfia had a thing where it could translate the number from Nobelius Rose into something else. And Juliment had so much potential. It could, well, first up, we have this crappy promo, or not crappy, really good promo. It's crappy that it is a promo. But Juliment could have given the deck more protection. It could have given the deck what, in my personal opinion, it needed. More consistent numbers to everyone. Because honestly, your first swing before you restand something with Granfia kind of sucks. And your swings outside of those, the Vanguard swing and the restand swing, are kind of sucky as well. It could have done anything else, but simply make itself a gauge. because this deck has no, like, aggro pressure. It has no goodness to it. I don't know what Bushi was thinking. They hit this one in the kneecaps. I'm so glad they didn't waste random Evo this set on Flagberg. They better give Flagberg a good Evo if this thing exists. To the people that love Granfia, I'm sorry that I've kind of shot on it this entire video, but I'm also sorry that Bushi chose to treat you like this. You guys deserve better. I stand by my statement on this. This is the one deck I'm not going to defend. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow the Twitch. Bushi better fix this. I'll see you on the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.